Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, grab a blanket and maybe turn on an extra light, because today we're diving into something deeply, deeply unsettling. We're going to examine the meticulously documented accounts of the infamous Smurl family haunting. Be warned, though, the details we're about to unpack from this case are genuinely chilling. We are talking about a slow, creeping psychological horror that turned an ordinary family's life completely upside down, dragging them from quiet suburban peace straight into a literal living nightmare. Think about this for a second. What if your dream home was actually hiding a demonic secret? Put yourself right in the Smurl's shoes. Imagine signing the papers, getting the shiny new keys to your sanctuary, unpacking your boxes, and just feeling that incredible, warm sense of safety. Now imagine that very safety being systematically dismantled, piece by terrifying piece. It's that psychological dread of realizing the walls meant to protect you from the outside world are actually trapping you inside with something completely malevolent. And that is exactly what the historical records reveal happened here. The sensory horror began in the dead of night. Picture this. The house is pitch black. It's completely silent. And suddenly, Jack Smurl wakes up. But he doesn't wake up to the sound of the wind or a passing car, It's this escalating, unnerving scratching sound. And the truly terrifying part, the family's accounts specify that this scratching wasn't a mouse, and it wasn't a branch scraping outside. It was coming from inside the very architecture of his bedroom walls. Just imagine the sheer raw panic of hearing something trying to claw its way out from the drywall right next to where you sleep. So Jack finally turns on the light to investigate the noise, and this is what was waiting for him. A 7-foot-tall, completely featureless black shadow, just standing there at the foot of his bed. No eyes, no face, just a towering void of absolute blackness waiting in the room with him. It's a profoundly terrifying visual presence that the historical records emphasize over and over and over again. But wait, how did we even get to that horrifying midnight encounter? Well, we have to look at the timeline. Back in 1974, the Smurl family moved into what they thought was just a quiet, unassuming duplex in Pittston, Pennsylvania. It was supposed to be this great fresh start for them. But that deceptive calm gave way to a relentless escalation. You see, the haunting didn't just start at a level 10, it built up over years, slowly trapping the family in this terrifying situation until they ultimately had to literally flee for their lives in 1987. The horror was a total slow burn. The entity grew bolder, testing its limits over time. Step 1 was olfactory, a foul, putrid smell of rotting meat that just completely permeated the house. I mean, an odor that absolutely no amount of scrubbing or bleach could wash away. Then, step 2, it escalated to the physical. Television sets would violently explode out of nowhere, completely shattering the family's peace. And finally, step 3, as we just talked about, the aggressive scratching in the walls and the physical manifestation of that massive shadow itself. At this point, it became undeniably clear that this wasn't just your standard run-of-the-mill ghost story. So the famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren were called in. And their conclusion is really what elevates the terror of this whole case. The family was dealing with a demonic presence. Not a lingering spirit. Actually, scratch that. It wasn't a spirit at all. It was a powerful, malevolent entity that had actively claimed the house as its own. It's a fundamental shift, right? From a simple haunting to a full-blown, hostile takeover. And then came the climax, the final assault. The violence escalated incredibly fast, and the chaos was just overwhelming. The entity didn't just want to scare them anymore. It physically attacked. The family's heavy dog was literally picked up and hurled violently against a wall. The sheer unseen force required to do that is just staggering. Worse still, the attack started targeting the kids. One of the daughters was physically dragged out of her bed while she was fast asleep. No one was safe. Not the adults, not the children, not even the pets. Faced with this violently escalating reality, the Warrens attempted some incredibly desperate interventions. They performed multiple exorcisms, using all their expertise and faith to try and banish the thing from the duplex. But instead of banishing it, the rituals only provoked it. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire. The entity grew exponentially more violent, actively and aggressively fighting back against the investigators. During these failed exorcisms, the entity delivered a direct, incredibly chilling message. In a low, totally distorted growl, it told the investigators right to their faces, "You can't get rid of me." Think about the sheer arrogance and the raw power behind those words. It wasn't just some hollow threat, it was a statement of fact from a dark, immovable force that had thoroughly embedded itself into the very fabric of the Smurls' lives. Finally, by 1987, after enduring well over a decade of escalating torment, sensory horror, and outright physical violence, the Smurl family broke. They packed up whatever they could and fled the Pittston house for good. But, as psychological experts note, you don't just walk away from an experience like that unchanged. They escaped the physical structure, sure, but those deep psychological scars from the ordeal, those remained with them forever. They survived, but the trauma of living with a demonic presence was absolutely permanent. And that leads us to the most chilling, lingering reality of this entire case. The Smurls left, but the house is still standing on that quiet Pennsylvania street. And the shadow? It's still waiting in the walls. The dark rumor that continues to circulate to this day is that the entity never actually departed. It simply went dormant, waiting patiently in the dark for the next family to move in, unpack their boxes, turn off the lights, only to inherit that towering, featureless shadow. So, I have to ask, what would you do if your house turned against you? If the place you were supposed to be the safest suddenly trapped you in a nightmare? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. If this deep dive sparked your curiosity, definitely keep exploring the darker, unexplained corners of our world. Just remember that somewhere out there in Pennsylvania, a featureless shadow is still waiting in the dark, whispering, "You can't get rid of me."